life's too short. I just can't believe that I've just wasted so much of my life trying to fix my weaknesses. I, I know what I'm good at. Like, I know my strengths. And, I'm a good public speaker. I'm a people person. I'm good at coaching and training people. Like, I know that those are my strengths. And I've known that most of my adult life. And yet in 2018, I became a software engineer and then had a 6-year career staring at a screen with very little interaction with other people and no public speaking whatsoever, and very little coaching and training. And so I think for me, the problem is that I spent time going against the grain. Like, I spent time working on my weaknesses, like trying to get better at coding and learning new programming languages and trying to produce more work in less time. I tried to improve my maths. I tried to learn data science. I did a lot of things that just don't come naturally to me, that I just don't have a natural tendency for. And I think the only things that really got me through and meant that I achieved these things was my perseverance and my dedication and my diligence and my work ethic. And then really I got to the point whereby I was exhausted. I was totally and utterly exhausted. And I think that's what will happen. I think if we continually try to fix our weaknesses, then it's an uphill battle. It really is like trying to push a boulder up a hill. And I think instead, what we should be looking for is to double down on our strengths. And when I work with coaching clients at the moment, I like to ask them a few questions to try and help them to identify what their strengths are. So we begin with exploring where they naturally lean towards. So in times of boredom or in times of solitude, what do they tend to do? What do they gravitate towards? And very often what we find is that our strengths align with our interests. And very often what we're interested in is also what we're good at. And the two compound over time. I also ask them questions about what other people around them would say they were good at. Because very often that really matters. Like, a lot of times people around us, our family, our friends, our work colleagues, very often they can identify and see strengths in us that we can't even see ourselves. I think for me the answer to this, like the kind of solution to fixing my weaknesses was to step away from that and to lean into my strengths, to double down on my strengths. And I think another question that I like to ask my coaching clients is, what looks like work to others but feels like play to you? This is a great quote from Naval Ravikant. And essentially what he's talking about here is, what are those things or skills or activities that you find easy, you find natural, but other people find really difficult? And so for me, I spent 6 years in a software engineering career whereby other people around me found a large percentage of what I had to do easy, but I found it really difficult. Now, to flip that around, what do I find easy that others find difficult? Well, the first example that pops into my mind is public speaking. I delivered a TEDx talk in 2016. I stood on stage in front of a few hundred people live and maybe a couple of hundred people who were watching online. And then that video has now been viewed. And I think that video has now been viewed, 5,500 times on YouTube. So I knew that I was good at public speaking, and that felt like play to me. And it always has. But to other people, as is commonly known, public speaking is a great source of anxiety and worry. A lot of people would prefer never to speak in public, whereas I've spent most of my adult career actively looking for opportunities to speak in public. So for me, that's definitely my answer. I would say public speaking looks like work to others, but it feels like play to me. And then when I work with my coaching clients, once we've identified what their strengths are, whether that be that they're kind of remembering their strengths, maybe they're very aware of them, maybe they've asked people around them for their opinion. And then once we've also spoken about what feels easy, what comes easy to them, that would be difficult for somebody else. I think then we need to visualize what that looks like going forward. And this is really important because the arena in which we put ourselves can be conducive to our strengths, or it can actually hinder our strengths. So when I was a software developer, the arena that I was in, which was a corporate job, coding all day, every day, was not conducive to my public speaking. It wasn't conducive to my strength as a people person. It wasn't conducive to me as a coach or a trainer. And so I think to visualize the future, we need to think about, okay, how does the arena that we are currently in, be that living in, working in, how does that help us to play to our strengths? How much does that help us to play to our strengths? And this might be a very uncomfortable question to ask, because very often we like to try to prove that how we're living and how we're working is very much aligned with our strengths. But that's very often not the case. So, for example, for me as a software engineer, I wasn't able to use my strengths. I wasn't able to play to my strengths. I didn't have opportunity to stand on a stage and talk in front of people. I didn't have the opportunity to, create rapport with new people or establish new relationships with people. I had very little time dedicated to coaching and training. And so for me, when I visualize the future as a software engineer, I realized that I needed to change the arena in which I was working in. And that's tough, that's difficult. That's a really difficult thing to admit, but I knew that I needed to change that. I needed to play to my strengths because life's too short, and going uphill all the time, outside your comfort zone, going against the grain, is exhausting. And yes, of course, my logical mind was telling me, James, like, you've already invested so much time and money into this. It was the loss fallacy, the sunken loss fallacy. This idea that I'd already switched my career. I dedicated 6 years of my life already to becoming a moderately okay senior software engineer. And the prospect of throwing that away after all of that time, energy, money, seemed quite crazy to my logical mind. And of course, my logical mind also told me that I was compounding all of that time, energy, money, year on year. I was earning more, I was getting promoted, I was earning more experience. But deep down, I knew that all I was trying to do all the time was I was trying to fix my weaknesses. I was trying to work on my weaknesses. My weaknesses were technical ability, mathematical problem solving, logical algorithms. It's the absolute bread and butter of coding. And yet, that was my weakness. And I was persevering. And it was just pure grit and determination after 6 years that was getting me through. Whereas, put me on another stage for a TEDx talk, and it was like playtime. And so I made the difficult decision to change things. Because I knew that if I didn't change them then, I could easily continue for another 20 years, 30 years maybe, of that career, never fulfilling the potential that I could. Or instead, I could step away from that arena. I could step into a different arena. I could go back to coaching and training with people. I could stand up in front of groups of students and I could facilitate learning. I could teach skills. I could sit with them in one-to-ones and help them get from where they are to where they want to be. And that's what I decided to do. And I did that last year. So for 1 year now, I have been working on my strengths. I've been doubling down on my strengths. And it feels brilliant. And so I think I would love to invite you to ask yourself, what are my strengths? How conducive is the arena that I am working and living in to playing to my strengths? And if I were to visualize the future, a future in which I did nothing but purely lent in to my strengths, I did nothing but double down on my strengths, I played to my strengths, what would that future look like? And if it's different to the present, then now is the time to make a change. If you'd like help with this, then click the link in the description. We'll have an hour one-to-one consultation coaching call. We'll get to know each other. We'll talk a little bit about how we can identify your strengths and then how much you're able to work to your strengths at the moment. And then we could even touch on what a plan might look like to get you from where you are now, possibly fixing your weaknesses, to where you want to be, playing to your strengths.